The concept of health maintenance organizations, or HMOs, has been introduced 30 years ago in the United States. However, in the Philippines, it has only been implemented in the 1990s.
Ang pinaka-primary function niya is yung healthcare management ng mga members. Okay, when we say healthcare management, syempre lahat ng mga availment nila, whether it's an emergency, outpatient, and mga inpatient, kami nagbibigay ng mga approvals, sa kami mga may nag-a-assist sa kanila during availments. Ilike na lang natin sa mga ibang klaseng insurance yan. Whenever na kakailanganin mo, at least may peace of mind ka na kahit sabihin na natin wala kang cash, magagamit at magagamit mo siya.
In fact, there are 3 bills that pertain to the implementation of HMOs in the country. Administrative Order Number 34, House Bill Number 1197, and Senate Bill Number 191. Administrative Order Number 34 dictates the rules and regulations on the supervision of health maintenance organizations. House Bill Number 1197 and Senate Bill Number 191 both propose the establishment and growth of HMOs in the country in order to promote participation in health consciousness and provide protection to HMO members.
Ang importance kasi ng being a member ng AMOP, syempre, unang-una nare-regulate muna yung mga rates. Yung mga preferential rates na sinusunod ng mga bawat doktor na affiliated sa bawat HMO. When we say yung mga preferential rates, ito yung mga rates na parang ino-offer ng mga AMOP members sa mga nagiging members niya. Kaya, compare sa mga private availments, mas syempre na lumalabas na sabihin natin mas affordable yung na-offer ng mga AMOP members.
Unfortunately, there have been several instances wherein HMO members were not given the protection and proper health services that are supposed to be bestowed on them. Is it still advisable to invest in HMOs? What forms of protection are given to members of HMOs? What are the services and benefits on investing in HMOs?
Good evening. You are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno.
And I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight we will discuss your legal rights on HMOs, or Health Maintenance Organizations. What you need to know about the benefits and privileges you are entitled to as a member, and what you need to do should you encounter problems with your HMO provider.
Our guests for tonight are Mr. Carlos De Silva, Executive Director of the Association of Health Maintenance Organizations of the Philippines, Incorporated, or AMOP, and Dr. Maida Jimenez-Gonza, Assistant Vice President of Providers Network Management for Fortune Care. Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Dr. May and
Yes.
Lee, right? So
Yes.
we'll call you
Yes,
Lee.
good evening.
All right.
Good evening, Rod. Good
Thank you
evening.
very much for joining
Good
us
evening,
today.
Karen.
Good evening, Rod. Good evening, Karen.
Now, this is a topic very close to my heart because for one, I'm a true believer of HMOs. And
Okay.
secondly, I think, I've mentioned to you before the show that I'm a part of a board of a company that deals with HMOs. So, and I think it's really high time that we had a discussion regarding HMOs, because there's a lot of questions. We have to admit that there's a lot of questions with regard to HMOs.
But at least in terms of my experience, I've tried and tested HMOs, and even if I'm not a member of a board of any HMO, at least in my experience, I was able to really use it for medical procedures, for being admitted in the hospital. But I guess what we have to clarify with people, because I think this is kind of similar to insurance. When we had that topic, our guest from the Insurance Commission said the Philippines is very underinsured, like only a small percentage of the population is insured. I'm curious, would any of you know the statistics for HMOs, HMO coverage?
Yes, I do. In 2013, we had something like 3.5 million HMO plan holders.
Okay.
So
So
definitely
that's about,
underinsured, like 3%.
yeah,
Yes.
3% of the
3.5 million and growing.
No, wait a
Yes.
minute. That's 30%.
No, that's
3 million.
we're
Sorry,
100
yeah,
million,
3% of the. We're about 100 million.
Yeah.
in
So,
Philippines.
but and in connection with Karen's question, and we were discussing this earlier. I think a lot of people are asking, what is the difference between a HMO and health insurance? Because some of them are saying, oh, I'm already covered by some group health insurance, or I'm covered by PhilHealth. Maybe just, I know that there are a lot of, I guess, differences, but perhaps the salient points, Lee, maybe you
Yes.
can.
To begin with, what is an HMO? An HMO is an entity that is organized in accordance with the corporate code of the Philippines and regulated by an appropriate government regulatory agency. Now, HMOs are not really providers of health. Rather, they are arrangers of health, arrangers of managed care benefits between institutional healthcare providers, which are the hospitals
and doctors.
and the doctors. Now, membership fees are prepaid and fixed, usually for a period of 1 year.
Okay.
That is an HMO.
I guess we can make a difference here because the statistics is still the same. It's about 3%, which is about the same as insurance,
yeah.
which, I mean, in terms of people who have life insurance or other types of insurance, property insurance. Basically, we can say that in the Philippines, only few people get HMO coverage. But I guess the difference with insurance is that for insurance, you have to, if something happens to you, you have to have an insurance policy which says what type of coverage you have.
Okay.
Yes.
Right? But with HMO, you're a member, your payment is more of a membership fee, not a premium.
Or is
right?
it a premium?
It's a membership fee. We call it a membership fee. But earlier, Attorney Rod did ask me what's the difference. There are a lot of differences between what do you call this?
An
Insurance.
HMO and an insurance,
A life insurance or a non-life insurance group hospitalization. They call it a group hospitalization package versus an HMO. There are a lot.
What is
Okay.
the advantage of an HMO?
I'm just going to single out just one. Okay, for a group hospitalization, normally you can go to any hospital around the country and use any doctor. Okay, however, it is you must pay for the services prior to being discharged from the hospital or getting any service from the hospital.
This is for an insurance.
for an insurance
So it's a reimbursement system?
reimbursement
Yes.
type of service.
Actually, yes. And to add to that, for the HMOs, they usually maintain a network of providers. That's how we call it. Meaning to say they have
Like accredited.
Yes, they have
doctors
accredited
and-
doctors.
Correct.
They have accredited hospitals or clinics, where our members, our enrolled members, can go and have their availments.
Availments. By
Yeah.
availments, you mean that you
to
have a
get your
list.
benefits.
Yes,
Yes.
to get their benefits.
Right.
So if you just want to have a checkup, for instance, I think for insurance, you can't just claim on an insurance policy
No.
by saying, I need a checkup.
Yeah.
So, but in my experience, if I wanted a general annual checkup, a comprehensive one, I use my HMO. And
If it's covered.
Yes,
that's
if it's
correct.
covered, right?
Exactly.
There are
That's
some
correct.
that
That's
aren't,
And
yeah.
is this a normal type of benefit that you would usually get from having HMO coverage?
Okay, to answer your question directly, an HMO member walks in and walks out of the hospital without having to pay one centavo, provided everything that he gets, the benefits that he gets from the hospital or from the clinic or from the laboratory is within the confines of his or her policy.
Yes.
It
I see.
must be, okay?
Now HMOs are basically still new no, in the Philippines. So when was this concept introduced?
Well,
Dr. May,
not really.
Okay.
We have 14 industry leaders as members, and one of our members is Health Maintenance Incorporated,
HMI.
HMI, right? It has been there for 32 years. The first legally registered HMO with the Securities and Exchange Commission. That is HMI, and that's 33 years ago. Alongside HMI would be, then we had St. Patrick's, if you remember
Yeah,
St.
St. Patrick's.
Right.
We
Yeah.
have also, actually, Fortune Care is one of
The oldest.
pioneers.
One of the
Yeah,
oldest,
we are
correct.
actually, Fortune Care is already on its 28th year of operation.
There you have it. 28th.
Yes, sir.
Good.
So it's been around for a long
around.
time.
Yes,
except
yes,
that
yes.
still 3% of the whole Philippine population
Yeah.
are the only ones who avail themselves of getting HMO coverage. How affordable is an HMO coverage? Or
Okay.
maybe how expensive is it? How much is
Good
it?
question. HMOs we have always said that we try our best to make HMO coverage, healthcare benefits, available to as many Filipinos as possible at the most affordable cost.
Yes.
All right.
And how do we do this? We negotiate with hospitals for preferred rates. We negotiate with doctors for negotiated rates.
Yes.
And having done this, the third one, we negotiate with the major medical specialty societies there are. We have to date 4 memorandums of agreement. The first one is with the Philippine College of Surgeons. The second one was with the Philippine College of Physicians. It's up for renewal, and perhaps, hopefully, by the end of the week or next week, we're signing the renewal MOA. We have a MOA with the Philippine Society of Anesthesiologists, and the last one, a MOA with the Philippine Obstetrical and Gynecological Society,
So
the
you got
POS.
those, you got
Several.
those
And
covered.
really, these are the huge medical specialty societies with roughly, 35,000 doctors. We have negotiated with around 700 hospitals, clinics, and laboratories all over the country. Very few tertiary hospitals, very few secondary, but a lot of
Primary.
tertiary hospitals.
So,
Yeah.
so
lot.
Dr. May, would you say that for it then that straightforward answer, it would really benefit people, even
Yes.
if you were not part of the HMO industry, that for them to get HMO coverage?
Yes, yes, yes. Because like Mr. De Silva had said, we have negotiated rates with our providers. That's one thing that differs us from the ordinary health insurance. So these providers will provide the healthcare services to our enrolled members at an agreed rate. We make sure that those doctors or hospitals that we accredit, they sign a contract with us, stated in there the rates that they should only be charging to our members. So bottom line is, it will always appear that the cost is still lower.
Now,
Okay.
in the States, as we know, Obamacare, it becomes a major political issue. Di ba? And whenever they have elections, healthcare is almost the kind of the main thing that people talk about, and the presidential candidates talk about. What are the difference between the HMOs there and here? Are there major differences, or it's patterned after? We're patterning it after the U.S. models.
It's safe to say that there are a lot of differences. Just allow me to just focus on one thing.
Yes.
In foreign countries, perhaps in the United States, the elderly are covered even in their senior years. In the Philippines, regretfully, we still have to have a lot of HMOs, or some HMOs that would cover people that are beyond 60 or 65 years old. Traditionally in the Philippines, for an individual or a family account, a person, an individual, would be covered up to age, starting with age 15 days.
Yeah,
You can
as
be
a
covered.
baby.
You
As
can
a
be
baby.
covered already.
Correct,
Yes,
a baby.
person.
15 days old, am I right?
Yes, sir.
15 days old to 60
65.
years old.
Oh, 6 years.
60 years old first. Actually, it's 59 going 60,
Yes.
right? Because it terminates at 60. Now, there are HMOs in the Philippines that if you have already been with them for the past 10 years, even
can
as an
extend it.
individual, they're able to extend you up to age 65. Now, in contrast to the corporate account, it may be the same, age 18, which is the normal age that you start working, I guess, and up to age 65. However, we're able to cover especially the top brass people up to age 70, 75, even 80. But these are the president, the chairman, the really top brass in the company.
I see.
But Dr. May this HMO exclude if you have pre-existing conditions? Do you exclude some people from becoming members?
Yes, actually, as part of the things that we do as an HMO. First is we have these underwriting departments that usually review these kinds of enrollees. So, this is a health maintenance organization. So, as much as possible, on the actuarial side, we would like to enroll members who are not really very sickly, okay?
Because it doesn't make business sense. If you,
Okay. That's
But I
one
was
thing.
wondering
Yeah.
if I was
Yeah.
someone getting coverage, I would think, well, if I don't get if I have asthma, for instance, then it makes sense for me to buy HMO.
Yeah.
But then if I hardly go to the hospital anyway, it's like paying. I think that's the mentality of
Mentality
most
mostly, yeah.
Filipinos.
Yeah,
That's
they
why
self-insure.
Yeah.
that's why,
Themselves
of course, I'm
yeah.
bringing this up.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have policies that would exclude these pre-existing conditions, but not all, because there are certain accounts that would allow the coverage of these pre-existing conditions, but not for all.
Yeah, I guess it depends on,
it
just
depends
like
on
any
the
other
plan.
contract.
Yes.
I guess just like any other contract, you can put the terms and
Yes,
conditions
yes,
there. No?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
right.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
What she said. Attorney Karen, a while ago you did say that you preclude people from joining because of pre-existing conditions. The answer to that would be yes and no. To begin with, we want everybody to get enrolled. However, if you have a pre-existing conditions that is beyond the risk assumptions of a particular HMO, the HMO could be very polite and tell you that regretfully we can no longer handle your particular health condition. And very politely, the application is declined. Okay? Other than that, we'd like people to really enroll. Now, that's one point I'd like to make. The other point I'd like to make is for individual and family accounts, normally, because it's one-on-one, individual.
Right.
Okay? Normally, when you start your first year with the company, it is normally not covered.
Yes.
Because we don't know you from Adam or Eve. We do not know your health conditions and all of that. We require at least 1 year to get to know you better. We know your health profile better. After 1 year, most AMOP members would already cover your
most.
pre-existing conditions, while others would cover you maybe just 50%. And on the third year, 100%. It really depends on the HMO's actuarial studies and data mining.
It is a math or science.
Right.
Yes.
And the
Math
same is
science.
very true for corporate accounts. If the company is quite small, it's a startup company, it's just like an individual basis. Normally, the pre-existing conditions are not covered. However, if it's a huge company, like it's a BPO, especially if it's a takeover account, especially if it comes already for many, many years in different other HMOs, where the pre-existing conditions are already covered, then it is practically automatic for them to cover the pre-existing
This is
conditions.
good. That would make good business sense.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah, I guess for the
Exactly.
benefit of our viewers, pre-existing
Correct.
conditions, we've been talking about it. It's basically if, for instance, you already have been sickly with asthma from the time you were a child, and then you're trying to get HMO coverage for everything, then it might happen that the HMO might not cover conditions that are related to asthma problems.
By the way,
Yeah, it
whether
could
it's
be.
evident or not, right?
Yes.
Because there are some that are evident. Obviously, if you have a lump here,
Right,
that's evident. But there are also pre-existing conditions now you did not know you have it.
Correct.
You mentioned earlier.
I did mention it earlier.
gallstones.
From a layman's point of view, a pre-existing condition could be one that you already had. For example, hypertension. You've been taking medications for hypertension for the past 10 years. Or you already had tuberculosis. This is something that you do not get overnight or over a week. That is pre-existing condition.
Yes.
The other one he did say, no? For example, you have already a lump in your cheek and you look in the mirror every day and you see the lump there. For heaven's sake, that's pre-existing. It has been
Yes.
there already. And the third one, which is coming from a medical point of view,
Say, for example, we have a patient
the
that...
pathogenesis.
Yeah, the pathogenesis for, say, for example, a gallstone disease. This particular patient does not know that, or this particular member does not know that he has a gallstone. And then when he became a member, a card holder, then that's the only time that he was diagnosed. Then they usually say that, is this really pre-existing? Because this is only now that I was diagnosed with gallstone. But then again, looking at the medical point of view, the pathogenesis of the disease will state that this is already a pre-existing condition.
Very interesting
Yeah,
topic,
so-
especially since a lot of people get sick and sometimes are not prepared financially for it.
I know.
And we have a lot of questions from our viewers, which we were not
It's the
able to
tip of
take
the
up
iceberg.
because there's so many questions from both of us.
We haven't even read the questions of that
Yes.
yet. So it's just our questions now. So,
Yeah.
but-
So for
yeah.
now, we'll take a short break. Legal Help Desk will return discussing your legal rights on HMOs. So stay tuned.
Unbeknownst to many frustrated members of HMOs, there are several grounds for the suspension of license of an HMO company. According to Article 12 of the Senate Bill 191, an HMO company can be suspended based on the following: when they are no longer financially sound based on their financial records, when agreements with their members are not honored, when the statements on their application are proven false, misleading, or inadequate, when the arbitration of complaint is not honored by the HMO, when the HMO continuously violates the rules and regulations issued by the implementing commission and department, in this case, the Insurance Commission and the Department of Health.
Mga non-coverable na conditions, mga congenital, hindi naman talaga nako-cover yan. Siyempre, kahit nasabihin na, explain ng mabuti ng aming liaison officer, we expect na magko-complain pa rin yan through head office, and what we do naman, nire-review pa rin namin. Tapos siyempre, through our customer service, sinasagot din naman yan through a formal letter. Yung mga iba, exhausted na. Ibig sabihin, ang plan limit nila na consume na nila, nagko-complain pa rin yan. Pero yan nga, ina-address naman formally.
So if you have any complaints towards the HMO company you are a member of, take note of these grounds so as you can have a valid reason to file a case on them.
Welcome back to Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. And we still have with us Mr. Carlos Da Silva, Executive Director of the Association of Health Maintenance Organizations of the Philippines Incorporated, and Dr. Maida Jimenez-Gonza, Assistant Vice President of Providers Network Management for Fortune Care.
Ayan. All right. Again, welcome, Lee, and Dr. May. Now, let's talk about, let's say you're a member of an HMO and you have some problems. What is the usual grievance process? If I have an issue, of course, usually you go to your, I guess, your account manager, or but let's say you're
for instance, you went to the hospital and you had some treatments, you were admitted to the hospital, but then when you were claiming, they did not recognize your coverage. How do you complain against your HMO?
Well, I would imagine that the first thing you do, and Maida will agree with me, is you talk to your HMO. There is nothing like talking to your HMO. Makiusap sa inyong HMO. Okay? Now, outside of that, and you're not satisfied with what the HMO has decided on your case, there is an administrative. Earlier, you did put it on screen, the Administrative Order 34 of the Department of Health. Okay. Now, the grievance mechanism would allow you to go to the Bureau of Health Facilities and Services, the Department of Health. That is where you air your grievance, you fill up a form, and ask them to send it. They will send it to the association, the AMOP. When it gets to us, we are mandated by the Department of Health to, within 30 days, resolve the issue. Immediately, we would send the concerned AMOP member the complaint and give them 5 working days to resolve the issue. Because we're giving a lot of time so that the 1 month, we are able to settle the case within 1 month. So that is the grievance mechanism for all HMO plan holders.
So
well, that's a relief. They don't have to go to court right away.
Yeah.
Which is really
you regulate it's a self-regulating association.
The association polices its rank.
Yeah.
And the Department of Health has an administrative order that says there is a grievance mechanism to address the complaints and concerns of the HMO plan holders. If the HMO is a member of the AMOP, then it is given to us.
Right.
If it's a non-member, the DOH resolves the issue themselves. But I should also mention here that the AMOP is mandated to mediate the cases. The Department of Health is mandated to arbitrate the cases. Failing on both instances, then the avenue for the plan holder would be the courts.
Okay, so there's mediation before you even have to go to court.
Definitely.
That's
And in all my experience, in all the cases that I have handled, I'm chairman of the Grievance and Complaints Committee. Only 2 were elevated to the Department of Health.
Okay.
Almost all the cases are mediated.
Well, that's good to know. It works. The arbitration and mediation works. We have questions now from our viewers, and we'll start with one from Dodgy. I intend to sign up for HMO coverage, and while I was browsing through the plans available, I noticed something called POS or point of service. What exactly is this? Do I have to pay more if I decide to use this option?
Actually, for the POS, okay, this is it's a form of a managed care plan also, wherein the member or the enrolled member can go directly to the specialist, okay? They have a direct access, that's how we call it. Unlike the standard wherein, like let's say for example, we have a gatekeeper, we call it a gatekeeper. Like
The coordinator, the medical
coordinator,
the medical
okay,
coordinator,
the medical coordinator in the hospital, wherein our enrolled members, they have to go through our coordinator first, and then the coordinator will check the patient, and then if it needs referral to other specialists, then that's the only time he gets referred. So basically, that's the difference between the POS and the.
There's like someone before you get to the hospital. But what if it's an emergency case? Do you still have to go to this person before you go to a referral?
No, when it's if it's an emergency case, they usually handle it already. Kumbaga, whoever is available at the ER, they can already handle
So
it.
they have their own ER, they're qualified.
But they just it's just a policy that they still have to inform the coordinators. Okay?
So can I just please add to what Myra did say? The point of service really is not for individual accounts. It really is not. It really is for corporate accounts,
Yes.
right? And in answer to attorney's question, does it cost more? Yes, it does cost more for corporate accounts because it is a facility for you to go straight to your specialist without passing the medical coordinator or the gatekeeper.
Would that be a reimbursement system though?
No, because the point of service is within the system of the HMO, but it just gives you the privilege to go straight to the specialist without passing the medical coordinator.
All right. We got another question from Leng. Leng wants to ask, my preferred doctor left the hospital that was attached to my HMO coverage. He now runs his clinic in another hospital that is not accredited with my HMO. Can I still designate him as my preferred care provider?
Actually, I'd like to say this in behalf of the company where I am working at. Okay, so for Fortune Care, what we usually does is that normally, since the hospital or the clinic where the doctor is already working is no longer accredited with us, we might have to refrain from sending our members to that particular facility. We have to accredit that facility first for our members to be able to access it. Okay, that's how we
so in this
usually
case,
do
But
it.
to begin with, which is very logical. Why? Because you have to open a credit line with the hospital.
Yes.
If not, why is the hospital going to give you credit? So it's very important that you have to accredit the hospital first because you open a credit line for your plan holders.
Yes.
Am I
but in this
right?
case, it was the doctor. He had an he had a doctor. He went to a doctor. That doctor used to be accredited by his HMO.
Yes.
And the doctor transferred and formed his own clinic.
Right.
Okay.
But
So
he
can he
does not-
still? Can he
So I
still?
don't think he can use his HMO coverage anymore
At that clinic.
for that clinic,
for
for
that
that new
clinic.
clinic.
Or
So
for that
basically,
doctor,
for
for
this
that doctor.
person, it's either he goes with the new available doctor for the accredited clinics, or he pays his own for
Yes.
that
Yes.
specific
Well,
doctor.
The way I see it in the problem, there are two problems actually in that question. One, the doctor is no longer accredited because he left. He
left
formed
the
his own
Yes,
clinic,
yes.
right? So the question is, whether can I use that doctor still? I mean, it's yes and no. Yes in the sense that convince the doctor to still get accredited, right?
Yeah.
No, because he no longer is in the network
Yes.
of the
Yes.
HMO.
Yes.
So it's yes and no.
So yes,
Okay,
okay.
now as to
Then-
the hospital, as to belonging to the hospital that is no longer, that is not affiliated with the HMO, definitely the answer is no. Why? Because the HMO will have to open a credit line or accredit or affiliate the hospital first before he is allowed
Yeah.
to go there.
Okay.
We have another question from Albert, and he's asking, I'm a regular employee at a BPO company, and I'm taking care of my 12-year-old niece. Her mother was my sister, who was a single parent and died of breast cancer. I enrolled my niece as my direct dependent to my HMO coverage and filed my application to our HR. A month later, I got an email from a representative of the HMO saying that my application has been denied, because my niece is considered as an extended dependent. When I applied her as my dependent in my last employment, they allowed it. Why is this? On what ground can they deny my application when I am a solo parent to my niece?
Okay. So,
Want to take a shot at that?
yes, yes. Well, it was mentioned that from her previous HMO, it was covered. Okay, they allowed it. But then again, the new HMO, they did not. Maybe there is a difference in the policy that was enrolled. Okay, because we usually require all employees to give, if they want to enroll their dependents, they have to give us a justification or a legal basis that this particular dependent is indeed a dependent of hers. Okay, we usually require birth certificates and all, or legal adoption if this is the case. So there could be some difference when it comes to the policies that she enrolled at.
This is a new party to the
yes,
to the
because
contract,
she's saying
right?
that's a new HMO.
It's a new HMO, a new company.
Yes, a new company.
She's now with a new BPO.
But then in this case, since it doesn't appear that she adopted her niece, would you advise then that she just gets a different HMO coverage for her niece? Because it sounds
Individual, I
like
guess,
she won't
individual.
be able to
Allow me to
qualify as
answer
a
that.
dependent.
Okay, to begin with, the extended dependent is a no-no in the industry.
Yes.
It's extended.
Really?
The word extended. It should be the immediate dependent.
Which is a
When you say
daughter?
immediate,
Son?
if you are single, it is your parents, and then your brothers and sisters, and then following the hierarchy rule, okay, to preclude anti-selection in the enrollment of dependents, it is the eldest to the youngest. Okay, now if the employee is married, it is the spouse first, and then the eldest to the youngest child. Okay, following the hierarchy rule. Now, definitely the niece is not a child. This is a niece whom he is taking care of, she or he. She is taken care of. Definitely is an extended dependent. From a legal point of view, then the niece is not qualified because the company does not have extended dependence coverage. It only has dependence coverage. So what could be done? Perhaps, as Dr. Maida said, the lady could officially
Adopt.
or maybe ask the court to declare her as the legal guardian of the niece. If that is adoption, I don't know. Maybe. But ask the courts to declare her as the legal guardian of the niece.
And that would normally be considered by the
Definitely that will be considered. Because
All right.
Okay, so you can be a legal guardian, adoption, or get a separate HMO for it. that
Right,
is-
and I was going to say that because most HMOs, most HMOs would allow individual plan holders at age 12.
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
All right.
Right.
So we have one more
Good
question
option.
from Anna Maria. I just wanted to ask, as per our employment contract, I should have HMO coverage since the first day I worked with them. I only found out that I still don't have any medical coverage in my 45th day working for them. When I asked the management, they said that they have overlooked my membership, which I feel is not a valid excuse. Can I file a complaint against my employer? And if so, where should I file the complaint?
Well, definitely yes, because
Contractual obligation. Right?
yes,
Yeah.
it was her understanding that from the first day of employment, she would be given those healthcare benefits. But it was already on her 45th day.
Where can she file her?
They usually file these complaints to the
No.
HR, Human
The-
Resources
the
Department.
HR or government agency is the Department of Labor and
For
Employment.
the Department of Labor.
However, if it was an honest mistake by the HR, and I think it was admitted, and if she has health condition that must be addressed, then the HR must take care of that.
The bill for that
Take care of the
medical.
bill, diba? Take care of the bill.
Yeah, in this case, actually, that would be a breach of contract.
Yes.
Because it was agreed upon.
Correct.
But it's different from PhilHealth, wherein you can still claim it from your employer because PhilHealth will go after your employer to pay for the whatever premiums or coverage that they missed. So there's
Right.
a difference here because
So there's
PhilHealth is a
that's
government
obligation.
corporation,
Yeah.
and then
It's corporate obligation.
yes, and then this one is basically contractual between private entities.
Yes.
Okay, Raymond is asking, our HMO contract ended last January 30. our HR would like to change provider and is currently on negotiation, and we were asked to wait until further notice until the 18th of this month. And in addition, we were informed not to use the previous HMO. I am worried that if there will be an emergency, I would like to know what we can do about this matter.
Well,
They're being asked to wait. In the meantime,
yeah.
there's no
They're still
coverage.
negotiating, yeah.
Yes.
I guess, yeah.
To begin with, the HR is mandated. Maybe the company's policy is to provide its employees with health care on day one. As a matter of fact, it's supposed to be 12:01 of January 1.
Yeah.
It's not just January 1, it's 12:01 and onwards, because you can go to the hospital at 12:02 or 1:30 in the morning, right?
Right.
So if the employer needs time to negotiate for the renewal of the policy, it should have extended its policy. And maybe perhaps
From the previous one.
of the previous
Yes.
one. Maybe perhaps they extended it. But then again, if they did not, and there is a health condition that must be addressed now, they are duty bound to address that because they owe their employees a healthcare policy. It is part of their
Employment
mandate, their employment
contract.
contract. So they pay for it. They pay for it.
That's a good tip. One, for the employees out there, it's not an excuse for the employer to say, well,
Yeah.
we're still negotiating.
No.
And then
They
for
can't make that an
employers
excuse.
out there, watch out. If your employment contract with your employees say that you're providing or you're required to provide them HMO as you promised them, then you really have to either extend that HMO contract with your current provider while you're negotiating with a new
Right.
provider.
Ako by policy, my company, and I make sure that they're beyond probation before I offer them.
Yeah.
But just to give us a little bit of time, no? Kasi normally you don't know if they're gonna stay anyway. So
As long as
but
it's covered
yeah, as long
by a company policy,
Correct. That's
by all
yeah,
means.
Yeah. So now there's another question. A question from Lara. My HMO says 150,000 per illness per year. After my hysterectomy procedure last year, tinaasan nila yung membership fee ko and all members of our company dahil daw sa usage ko. Tama ba yung considering I only claimed for one illness and paid for my excess charges? Let's take a shot at that.
Okay.
I think
Dr.
two
Ray?
issues. One
Yeah.
is that they raised the fee.
They raised the fee.
Second, they also asked
Yeah, because of the
others, no?
usage, they
Okay.
increased their premiums.
Maybe I'll take a shot
Okay.
at that. To begin with, earlier I did tell you what an HMO is. I did say that it is a fixed membership fee, and usually for 1 year, and yearly renewable.
Yes.
So this is a corporate account. So 1 year has lapsed. Okay, now everything and anything that is coverable under the plan was given to the employee. Hysterectomy for the lady, right? Okay. Afterwards, the company has every right to review the corporate profile of the company, and it should be able to identify what are high risks. Okay? So if the company, it is not only her, it's not only her because this is a company. They looked at all the corporate profiles, all the utilization of the employees. It's only not one, right? So from an actuarial point of view, the company must have established that the corporate profile of the employee force is such that it would require the increase in membership fee for the succeeding renewal year. It must
It
have.
must be indicated
But
there.
of course, the employee herself could go to the HR and ask the reason why. No? Normally, what the HR would say would be to ask the HMO to submit a medical certificate that the health condition has been addressed already in the first year. It will not happen again. Example, attorney. If you have an appendicitis and you removed it already.
I was thinking of the exact
If you
same
have
example.
a tonsillectomy,
Yes.
you have removed it already. In the next year, you're not going to remove
Yeah,
anymore.
it's impossible to
It's
remove
impossible,
another
right.
tonsil
or a
your
gallbladder.
appendix, yes.
The three things have gone it out. So why are you going to increase it still in the second year? You don't have it anymore. It has been addressed. So maybe you can do that for all health conditions.
Okay.
Maybe, just maybe.
And again, in the end, if you're not happy, since you can renew or not renew, then look for another HMO provider that you can agree with in terms of rates, right?
At the end of the day, it's the
True.
market that will dictate.
But
Yes.
can I say something about that, please? It's very difficult to really keep transferring from one HMO to the other. Reason why the industry in Metro Manila is not growing, because companies tend to transfer from one HMO to the other. The important thing to do is to really discuss it with the HR, discuss it with the HMO, and be practical enough, you know, to see the real reason why the HMO is increasing this.
All right.
And really stick with it, because you know, we have clients that have been with an HMO for 15, 20 years, and you become a very, very valued client of that HMO.
And you get better service.
And you get better
Very
service.
helpful tips, so not only for people who get HMO coverage, but also for the employers out there who need to give HMO coverage to their employees.
Absolutely.
So for now, we will have to take another short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these messages. You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel, and we still have with us Mr. Carlos Da Silva, Executive Director of HMO, and Dr. Maida Jimenez-Gonza, Assistant Vice President of Fortune Care.
Okay, Lee and Dr. May. I have a quick question, and we were talking about this. People generally have PhilHealth. It's general coverage, right?
Okay.
And a lot of people are asking, oh, how does the dynamic work? I have PhilHealth and I have HMO. And a lot of people still get confused with that. I know it because I'm a bit of a veteran when it comes to hospitalizations.
Okay.
But can you explain how it works? That what PhilHealth
PhilHealth
goes
will
first,
cover and what HMO.
Okay.
what will PhilHealth cover and HMO cover?
So probably, okay, this is how it works. So for the hospital, let's say for example, you get admitted, okay? Prior to discharge, the hospital will deduct first the PhilHealth part.
The PhilHealth portion.
yeah.
all right.
If you're covered by PhilHealth.
Yes, if you are covered by PhilHealth. Then after that, that's where the HMOs comes in, okay? Yung covered ba sa account mo or not.
Now, when you say PhilHealth portion, so that is what PhilHealth will cover.
Yes.
Let's
What
say
you're
don't-
entitled
what
to
you're
a certain
entitled to.
amount, they will
Right.
deduct it. So
Okay.
people out there, you should look at your invoice and
So-
check if they've already deducted PhilHealth, if you're covered. And
Because
then
the HMOs
covered by
require that first, di ba?
Yes, because the
must
HMOs
make a
are PhilHealth
distinction.
integrated.
You must.
Okay, so normally we only accredit doctors or hospitals that are accredited to PhilHealth also.
Okay, all right. So you can't work with doctors
With
and
providers who are not PhilHealth
accredited.
accredited.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
Right, that's how we do it.
So deduct the PhilHealth first, then the balance is covered by the HMO.
Yes, yes.
Okay, can I just mention very, very briefly?
Yeah.
For individual and family accounts, most HMOs are not going to integrate their rates, their individual rates with PhilHealth benefits. Why? Because you're not sure whether the man in the street that buys your policy is a PhilHealth member. Although PhilHealth now encourages everybody to become a PhilHealth member. But from an actuarial point of view, from the company, they do not price it accordingly. They presume that you are not a PhilHealth member. Okay, now for corporate accounts, most every employee is a member of PhilHealth, and therefore the employer will demand that the HMO provide a plan that is integrated with PhilHealth.
But I
And
guess
why-
Dr. May was saying earlier that the deduction is coming from the hospital, right? When they get discharged.
Yes,
It's
yes.
the hospital who
Well,
will deduct.
why is this important? Is because the HMO, the HMO membership fee for an integrated plan is cheaper. Is cheaper than a non-integrated plan.
Yeah.
It's cheaper. So the employer would want a cheaper plan because it pays 50% of its employees
Yes.
PhilHealth benefits.
Yes.
Right.
Right?
Okay. We have another question from a
Correct.
viewer. It's from JJ. I was rushed to the hospital for severe body pains. The ER doctor recommended that I be admitted so that further tests can be done. The next day, the representative of the HMO I am a member of went to my room to inform me that they cannot cover my case because of the diagnosis by the ER doctor. I was then transferred to a public room from the private room which was included in my HMO coverage. All of the tests were covered by them, but the operation needed was not. Why can't HMO companies cover all illnesses and diseases? Why do they need to be selective when covering the diagnosis of their members? So this is related to the question earlier.
Yes, yes. It depends on the plan that you enrolled at, okay? So it's not the same for all. So if this particular patient paid for a premium that is only coverable for a ward room plan, okay, then he should be availing that, okay? Because if it says that you do not have any coverage if you stay in a suite room, okay? So then definitely it will not be covered, because from his plan, it only states that his coverage is only up to ward or private.
I see.
Things like
Well,
that.
Dr. Maida, allow me to interject. In this particular case, I see the possibility of a pre-existing condition.
Oh, yeah, that's
He
another
went through
thing. That's
ER.
another
I
thing.
think he went through ER, okay? And the very next day,
Yes.
which is part of our policy,
Yes.
the very next day, the HMO was able to determine that the health condition he went to the hospital for is a pre-existing condition,
Yes.
and therefore not coverable. But instead of removing him from the hospital, he was downgraded.
Yes.
And perhaps, by special consideration, some diagnostics were covered. Okay, but the operation was not covered. Am I right?
Yeah,
It was
yes.
not covered. So there are a lot of reasons why this happened.
Yes,
One of which could be pre-existing, and the
Yeah.
other one could be it is outside of his plan benefits.
Yes, yes.
Now, Lee,
Outside.
and Dr. Army, there is, I guess, a misconception or maybe a perception that because you negotiate your rates
Okay.
with your doctors and you negotiate them down, there is a general perception, albeit probably a wrong one, that the ones who are accredited by HMOs are of lower quality compared to that's the perception, right? And then
Yeah.
I'm a lot of people are asking that. Is that in fact correct? Well, let's clear up the misconception right
Okay,
now.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Earlier, I did say that we have 4 existing memorandums of agreement with the biggest medical specialty societies in the Philippines. The Philippine College of Surgeons, the Philippine College of Physicians, the Philippine Society of Anesthesiologists, and the POGS, the Philippine Obstetrical and Gynecological Society. Now, all these MOAs have one basic requirement when a member applies for inclusion into MOA initiatives. You must be a diplomate
Yes.
and a fellow. And in Metro Manila and most hospitals, they do not accredit
Yes.
non-diplomates and
Yes.
non-fellows. And the HMOs, we pride ourselves in getting the best medical specialists
Yes.
into our network, So it is not true.
All right.
Not true.
Okay.
I'm glad you
Now
cleared
to
it up,
help
yeah.
all our viewers, let's have a recap of our discussions today. And I think we can start from the basic question. Is it really beneficial to have HMO coverage? And I think with respect to those who are still confused, let's clarify that PhilHealth is not equal to HMO coverage. It's also not the same as medical insurance. So this is what you see yung mga companies where they have cards. They usually issue cards, and then you can have a general checkup, or you can get admitted to a hospital and not have to pay anything, subject to the fact that it's covered in your contract. So that's what kanina off camera, Lee was telling us before we started the show. Every time we have a grievance, it's because of the contract, because they don't read the contracts
Yes.
clearly.
Yeah. Now, just to one last question or one last clarification: any grievance is not with the Insurance Commission, right? It is with AMAP, which is
Allow me to say this. For the longest time, and for the record, the association espouses regulation by the Insurance Commission. And we're very thankful that of late, there is a lot of concrete proof that regulation is very close by the Insurance Commission. We've been interviewed. They've asked me a lot of documents, and I'm very glad that it's moving towards
so
that.
we're going towards there.
We're
Yes.
moving towards
That's
that.
good.
Right.
And Dr. May, any tips for those out there who are looking for HMO coverage? At least, what should they look out for, or what tips can you give them in terms of choosing the correct HMO provider?
Well, one thing that we would like to tell our prospective client members or card holders is that when they enroll in an HMO, okay, they have to make sure that they read the contract, okay? And prior to that, they have to discuss everything with their agents, okay, or brokers, and tell them their exact needs. What do they want to include in their contracts? So because later on, when they would like to avail already, they will not be encountering problems as the ones that were discussed earlier.
And of course, they should review and make sure that the ones that they're getting, or the HMO they're getting is stable.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
which
course,
has been
of
around
course.
for
Yes,
a long
yes,
time.
yes.
If I may add, following through what you just said, somebody that's in the market for a health coverage should really review the
Yes.
company they're going to deal with.
Yes.
It's your health you're trying to provide for, and definitely you must select a company that's going to be that's going to be the right company for you.
Yes.
Okay, and last tip, if you have problems with your HMO provider, Lee gave us an advice that first talk to your HMO provider. That's the best
Yes.
solution.
Yes.
And then afterwards, they have a mediation process, an arbitration process that does not require you to go to court first. So that should be the last
from
resort.
experience, the HMOs will listen to you, and I've seen many instances. In my case, for example, that decisions were reversed, and they eventually acceded to my request. So just make sure that you talk first to your HMO agent. All right. Now, sadly, unfortunately, we have run out of time. We'd like to thank our guests, Mr. Carlos Lee De Silva, Executive Director of the Association of Health Maintenance Organizations of the Philippines, Incorporated, or AMOPI, and Dr. Mayda Jimenez-Gonza, Assistant Vice President of Providers Network Management for Fortune Care, for being with us tonight. We should guest you again for a part 2, because we still have a lot more questions.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. If you have any questions or comments regarding our topic today, you may tweet or post it on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. Join us again next Monday as we discuss your legal rights. Good night.